very clear. I'm charging that this president was the architect behind much of what is going on. I'm charging that the president was not surprised by this at all. I am charging that the president knew clearly these things would happen. Those are my charges. But here are the facts, and this is from a recently released DOD memo. 3 key goals for this administration. 1, and I'm quoting, development of the current events into a proxy war with support from Russia, China, and Iran. The regime is controlling the areas of influence. They're talking about the Arab Spring and the Syrian civil war here. So what has happened? Syria has developed into a full-fledged proxy war with Russia and Iran siding with Assad against the West. Team Obama, mission accomplished, 1 point. 2, opposition forces are trying to control the eastern area adjunct to the western Iraqi provinces of Mosul and Anbar, in addition to the neighboring Turkish borders. Western countries, the Gulf states and Turkey, are supporting these efforts. So ISIS had not officially hit the scene yet with their caliphate declaration, but the intel community was spot on. But what was the plan? The plan was not to defeat, not to destroy, not to isolate, not to contain, but to harness them and use them for a regime change. We had been supporting their efforts. We know how the opposition force was ISIS. Our policy was actually to support and harness ISIS in order to get what we wanted, which in the administration's own words, we wanted Assad out, and we would use these people to gain that. 3, if the situation unravels, there is the possibility of establishing a declared or undeclared Salafist principality in eastern Syria. This is exactly what the supporting powers to the opposition want in order to isolate the Syrian regime, which is considered the strategic depth of the Shia expansion. Let me translate. The intel community is again spot on here. The undeclared Salafist principality in Syria, what is that? ISIS. They control parts of Syria just like the intel community predicted. Our foreign policy in 2012 was to support and enable the Islamic State in eastern Syria. So while they were saying a caliphate was crazy, they in their own intel reports were saying this group of people want to establish their own state, we should support them. ISIS is the fruit of Obama. You know how they say there's no good fruit can grow from a bad tree? This president wanted an extremist Islamic group fighting Assad. And look what has happened. The president has promised that he would degrade and destroy ISIS. Let me back up. This president wanted an extremist Islamic group fighting Assad. It makes the case that he was going to degrade and destroy them. But as we showed you, 2 weeks ago in 6 Days in Iraq, a documentary where we went over with the Kurdish forces and we showed you the highways, the supply highway, where they were taking tanker trucks back and forth, where they were moving their money and their assets, where they were selling oil. We showed it to you. We now have pilots who were on those bombing runs that the White House said, don't bomb that. Why? Why is it that over the weekend 355 prime ISIS sites could be taken out by Russia? Why would there be 355 sites left after we've spent a year and a half bombing them? Answer, we're not doing it. Why? Answer, the DOD document that's just been declassified. The president wanted an extremist Islamic group fighting Assad, and we support it. Team Obama would have you believe that ISIS caught them by surprise, and we're doing everything we can to destroy them. In reality, they saw ISIS coming. They wanted ISIS to come. Would Paris have happened if we would have destroyed ISIS in the first place rather than contain them, rather than arm them, rather than coddle them? This president sowed these seeds.
Sowed the seeds.
We are now reaping what has been sown by our own president. Do not allow him to plant any more seeds. I am a guy who has just raised, you are the audience who just did it, $12 million to rescue the Christians who are actually in harm's way. We are looking for homes. This audience has volunteered 12,000 homes, their own homes. 12,000 people in this audience have said, I will take a Syrian family. So we don't have a problem with refugees. We don't have a problem with Syrians. We don't have a problem with Arabs. We have a problem with ISIS members. And I am telling you now, as the guy who has been saying to you, we must not close our hearts to refugees. I am telling you right now, do not take one Syrian refugee that has been, quote, vetted, end quote, by this president, his allies, or the United Nations. Don't do it. Too many seeds are being planted, and they all will grow up to vines that will